So pretty much we're at the end of part one. We've drained the coolant, we've drained the oil, lowered the suspension, disconnected the battery, and then what wasn't on that list, but I will add it, was removing all of the bulkhead and windscreen wipers so that we can get access to the top of the engine. So I'm pretty happy with that, so I'll call that stage one complete. And now we'll be moving on to stage two. So first thing is going to take out all the air pipes across the top of the engine, and then probably have to take off the coolant pipe to access some of these turbo inlet pipes. So we'll get all of that out of the way, and that will give us a lot more access to the front end and the top of the engine. So the first step of that is going to be just taking off the air cleaners. So that's these fixings here. You can take these off, which is the actual air cleaner. Take out these fixings, undo the fixing to the turbo, and the same on the other side. And then taking out the sensors, so both the pressure sensor and the airflows there and there, and then we should be good. So I'll get on with that and show you what that looks like disassembled. Okay, so the back wings are off. I took out the whole air filters. They just clip into those two rubber bungs at the bottom there, and two screws at the top. So one here and one here, same on the other side. And looking at the amount of oil, so that central seal was completely toast. I left it too long. I think I'm going to change it every year now and change it with my oil services. So my idea of my rag seems to have worked somewhat, but still leaked through, and we've got a lot of oil on top of the harness there. So we'll get that cleaned up a little bit and plug the turbo, and then we'll keep going. So I removed a couple of pipes at the front just to make a bit of room. So I've taken out the water pipe out of this clip. This metal clip just pops up, and I've tucked the water pipe out over there. I've taken off this water bleed, which comes off just with this metal clip. So I've pulled that back. You have to twist the tube just to get it to break free. And then I did get my first failure. So I had this little clip fail. So I've got to order up one of those. I went into that bracket. Just making a bit more room, took off the turbo cover. So that's just those three fixings there on the back of the turbo, 1, 2, 3. I was going to take this bracket off, but I just can't quite get to those bolts. But instead I'm taking off this bracket, so just pulling out these three connectors and taking off this bracket. And then just with this, I have to use my 8mm socket to get down to that E down there. Just not quite enough room, so we'll get that bracket out of the way, tuck it down here, and that will give us access to the PCV. Hey YouTubers, welcome back to the channel. So this is just a quick video showing you changing the PCV valve. So I have done a lot of other work. I'm doing the oil cooler seal at the moment, but in general, all you have to do is remove your bat wing across the center, your air filter on this side, which is off the main fixings. So you get that all out of the way. You remove this bracket here, which is on 2 bolts. They're a bit tricky, but here and here gives you a lot of room. You have to remove the bulkhead inlet. Just have a look at my video on the oil cooler and you'll see how to get to all of that stage. And now we're going to take the PCV off, which is just these 2 bolts here. So they're really hard to get to. They're at the back of the engine. And we'll get down in there. There's one on the left-hand side and the other one is behind this tube here. So we'll get some tools and get onto that. Here is the new one. Here's what it looks like from the back side. So this is the one that's really hidden. This is the one that's a bit easier to see. So we'll get a couple of tools onto that, and then we'll be able to get that out. It fits in with that O-ring there, and it fits in over the end of the camshaft with that seal, which is a bit tricky to get on, so you probably want to lube that up a little bit, maybe warm it up just to get that back on. Okay, so both PCV bolts out now. The way I do that is using a 1/4" spanner with an adapter into a socket, and that's a 8mm socket, which fits just over the top of the E bolt. So it just means you've just got a lot of shorter play. I do have some ratchets, can't find them right now, that would do that job really well. But nevertheless, once you get it started, it does come out pretty easy. So these both were just loosen the threads there. Okay, so then to get it off, you just wiggle it and it should wiggle off the back of the camshaft. Okay, it was in really tight as usual. So I actually had to put a screwdriver on this side and lever it out. It's a little worn. It's not too bad. We'll just compare it in a second to the new one, sorry. And it gives us a little bit more room just to play around there while we're there in the engine. So you can see now reasonably big difference. Looks like it's worn off a lot of the rubber there, which is normal, and the new one should be really hard to get on, but we'll see how we go. And I was thinking, I've got to decide, but I might reuse the old pipe because the new pipe comes with this circlip rather than this clamp. So I'm not sure which is better quality, but I really don't like this kind of idea going on here. So the sensor doesn't normally fail, the seal does, but definitely this seal is what we're interested in changing. Hey YouTubers, welcome back to the channel. So this is just a quick little side video about the EGR. So I'm here busy doing the oil seal in the oil cooler and getting everything off, but as one part of that, I'm just going to take the EGR valve off. So there's two fixings, one's here on the back, a bit harder to see. If I just reach over, you should be able to see that one there. There we go. Take the connector off the back, and then the hard bit is getting it out. So I'm going to be putting the chisel in here like I did the last time, just trying to get it started and then try and rotate it and take it out. I'll just take this bolt out the way, give myself a little bit more room. That's the turbo bracket bolt. So what's difficult is that it's very, very tight in there. I've taken off all of the bulkhead, which makes things a lot easier. So you can take off this bulkhead panel on this side, and that's not too hard to do. The center one is really, really hard, and that gives you a lot more room to get in there. And then I've also taken off all of the back wing and the air filters. So clearly there's not a lot else going on. So let's get the chisel in there and see how we go. Okay, so just hammered away a little bit with the chisel there. You do cause a little bit of damage both to the metal seal and to the housings, and you do need to clean that up obviously to get it to sit down, but you can see it's already started to lift up, which is how I get it started. And eventually you can get a screwdriver just under this edge or in the middle there, and as you start to push, you can now start to actually get some proper purchase and really start to see it coming out all the way. So I'll keep doing that and get that out. Okay, so we managed to get it out. We did mangle that corner a little bit, and you can see the seal's still in pretty good condition and it didn't come off the engine, so I'm just going to leave that in place. You can see here the water pipe, so you do have to take the water pipe off. I'll just show you that on the valve. So you do have to get this clip. It's pretty tricky, a lot easier for me with all of those parts removed. So you slide it up the pipe, and then when you take the valve out, that's when you pull it off the steel pipe. Same in reverse. And again, all of this is just caked up with a bit of carbon, so you just have to wiggle and wiggle and get it out. The seal looks okay, so I'm going with that seal. Don't think I've got a spare, so we'll get this cleaned up and I will just give it a quick test as well. So I did get a bit ahead of myself. I've got the EGR connected up and I was hoping I could actuate it with my scanner, but unfortunately my scanner says that you have to have the engine running. And if I press open, and then nothing happens. It's a bit weird, but never mind. We can try that when the engine's running, and I did try it before and it did just make the engine shut down. It said you can hear the motor running when the engine's running, but good luck with that. Okay, so we'll get that cleaned up, and then when it gets time to put it back together, I'll show you how I get that back in. Okay, so we've got this pressure pipe off now, so there's one fixing here, there's one fixing here at the front on this ring, so it's hard to see, there on the ring, that goes onto the resonator there, and then you have to take the resonator off, so there's this fixing here, which I've put back in, and there's this fixing here, which goes in the side of the resonator. So as I go, I'm putting all of the bolts back in the block, just loose, where I can, just so I don't mix them up, because there are quite a few different lengths of those Torx bolts. There's E-bolts, and then this bracket I've just taken off, so this one comes out here. I took out these ones and took this whole bracket off. Not sure if you need to do that, but anyway, it means this ECU's out the way, and it means you can get to the other fixings. So same, just put all the bolts back in. This I took off just a bit earlier. This is the resonator, sits on top of here, so it's got one fixing here. And I think one other fixing, no, just maybe the one fixing anyway. You pull that out and that is over here, so that's the one sits in here like that. That's right, yeah, it has got that one other fixing, just goes through into that bracket. into that bolt there. Okay, so we'll get rid of all of that and then we'll start getting off this mixing chamber across the front here. I'm just going to leave that resonator just hanging down there. We'll just put something in that tube because otherwise I've just got to take that turbo pipe off, which is much the same. So next I've taken out the 2 bolts in the C here. There's one here and one at the bottom on this metal bracket. I've taken out these 4 bolts here, so one at the top, which I've put over to the right, one at the bottom, one here and one here. They're all loose, ready to go. I've taken out these 2 bolts out of the exhaust return tube, so that's ready to be loosened. And now I'm taking out the fuel filter. So you have to remove the 2 clips, take off the power connector, and then take out this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, and loosen this Allen key 5mm at the back there. Okay, finally got it out. The problem I had was the pipes are never removed, 10 years more on that tube, so just trying to get a twist on them and get some pull was really difficult. So what I did at the end was put a screwdriver down in here and put some pressure on the pipe, pulling it away, and that really helped out. And then I managed to get a screwdriver just in the back just to break the seal a little bit, and off we go. Okay, I finally got the front pipe out. So those 2 bolts were loose, those were completely undone, but this has got an O-ring on the back of it, was just causing a huge amount of grief. Hopefully it goes back together well. Took out all the long bolts out of there, so they're all different lengths, and also took out this diesel fuel pipe, pushed that over to that side, which was tucked underneath there. Okay, let's get that out and have a look. Okay, last thing I had to do is take off this vacuum hose. So I decided to take it off this sensor or control because it just looked like it was less likely to break if I took that off there. So I'll leave all that on the car for the moment and we'll get to the next bit. What is interesting, so my orange seal is here, that just fell off, and the second seal I think is there on the left, and then bizarrely this seems to just push onto the EGR, which is a very weird way of having that connected. And the last thing, the gasket has remained on this piece here, so I have got that gasket new. But this is the state of my build-up. It's not too bad, it's not great, but we will be cleaning that up and getting some of that soot out, and the same on these tubes when we get in there. Okay, I got the 3 turbo pipe bolts out. They are super difficult, especially the one at the bottom. You can't see what you're doing, but now time to get these triangular bolts out. What's interesting on mine is that I've got a V-band clamp on the bottom of the EGR pipe, which is a bit different, but we'll see how we go. Theory, if I take that off the manifold and take those 6 bolts out, it should all just lift out, in theory. Apart from the pedestal bolts, which I have managed to crack off, they're T45s and really tricky to get to. Okay, let's see. Okay, I pushed on a little bit, so I got the 6 bolts out of the bottom. I got the V-band off the EGR pipe and the 2 bolts from the top. I'd already got the 3 bolts out from the exhaust and already taken out the sensor. And then I took out the 2 bolts on the pedestal and the 2 bolts on the back, and with a lot of struggle or wiggling, got the turbo out. I did have problems with the O-ring here. I did take that sensor off, which I think really helps. So I would recommend you do that if you're going to do it. And I'm a bit undecided because whilst on the one hand there's a lot of oil here, there's not a lot of oil here. So is my oil cooler leaking, or was it just the turbo dripping down onto the harness and the sensor? Anyhows, we'll get it all cleaned up. We're going to get probably the manifolds out. The servo motor does still work, or at least does still turn, and so do the slides on the swirl flaps, but they do stick a bit there. So I think a lot of cleanup. Probably get the manifolds off, clean them up. They are disgusting. I've already cleaned up the mixer pipe, so that took a lot of cleaning, and I have got that looking pretty sparkling. You can see there is nothing in there now. I used oven cleaner to melt the carbon out, and hopefully that hasn't caused any problems. But we'll see how we go. All right, let's keep going. Right, so next up on the list is removing the pedestal. So I'll be taking out those 4 bolts there to get the pedestal out the way, and then I'm going to move on to the wiring harnesses and the connectors and then the fuel rails, and then we should be just about there. Let's see how we go. All right, finally got to this stage. So I did have to take out the left-hand fuel rail, all of the bleed backs from the injectors, all of the injector wiring, all of the sensor wiring. On the right-hand side, I had to do the same. I've got a leak there on the top, and I don't know what that leak is, but it's annoying, and I saw that one before, and it's really hard to say. Maybe it's the O-ring. There is no O-ring. Okay. So not sure what that leak is, but we'll see if we can work it out. And then on this side, also had to take out the fuel rail, had to take out all of the bleed backs, and also had to take this fuel pipe off, the fuel return, which is a real pain the way they'd nested those cables. We'll see how we can get all that back. So now we're good to get on with the manifold.